Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this June 26, 2015 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com, and you can catch my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. And today we're going to continue looking at the Circle Earth theory and continue on with Rob Skiba. And he's got some interesting insights looking at this theory from a biblical and a scriptural perspective. So we'll get to that in a moment. But there's two things I want to comment on. First is, the Pope every day he's sticking his nose into things that, just makes me wonder. Well, it doesn't make me wonder, but it should make you wonder if you don't understand the Vatican-led New World Order. It's a good, gives you a good indication that he's up to no good. Now, outside of all the different things he's going to come out and say, the one thing today that came to my attention, and this came to my attention by a CEO and co-founder of a gun manufacturing company, and he made a statement after the Pope came out the other day saying all gun manufacturers are non-Christians. So let's look at this hypocritical statement. Let me read to you what Mr. Hunsucker said, and then I'll make some comments of my own. But he said, Head Down, that's his company, manufactures weapons, is a Christian company, he said in response to Pope Francis. Or, I call him Mr. Funny Hat Francis. Our company was started on the faith in Jesus Christ, and we strive as an organization to live up to those beliefs. We are not afraid to say that Head Down Products is a Christian company. Now, Funny Hat Francis was quoted as saying, just recently, makes me think of people, managers, businessmen who call themselves Christian and they manufacture weapons. That leads to a bit of distrust, doesn't it? Essentially stating that one cannot be both Christian and in the firearms industry at one time. Well, how can he do it? How can Mr. Funny Hat do it? He's in that business. What do you think the Vatican Bank is used for? To buy weapons. How many people have that group killed with weapons over the centuries, and all kinds of weapons since the Inquisition? If any organization uses weapons, it's his. But he wants everybody else to get rid of them so he can use them on everybody, so there's no defense. This is Mr. Hunsucker. This is yet another attempt to demonize not only me, but my company and our beliefs, Hunsucker added. He stated that he was naive early in his walk with the Lord. It took losing everything I own to realize that he has a plan for my life. He has known what I was destined to do in life before I was born, and his plan for me is perfect. Head Down Products feels that Funny Hat Francis and the news media reporting this story are failing to report that firearms for many people are a way of life. They provide food for a family that cannot afford to buy meat from a store, or provide income to a family that serves in the security industry, as well as provide for an age-old tradition of sport shooting. And, may I add, it provides a defense against Pope Funny Hat Francis and his New World Order. It is saddening to see firearms demonized in the press in the manner that they are, Hunsucker said, referencing an array of recent media which has painted the industry in a bad light. We have a heart problem, not a gun problem. If we can focus on fixing hearts and minds of people, and I say change those New World Order idiots, we can change the world. When asked why he felt it's necessary to respond to such criticism, he replied, I feel the firearms industry has stayed idle under scrutiny for too long. Guns built in America under the grace of God. Yes, you can be a Christian and make guns too. I'm a living testament to that. Hunsucker remarked in closing, what makes that's Funny Hat Francis' message, hard to digest, the fact that he hides behind a wall of security and armed guards himself. Interesting. Well, one more thing before I was going to not do this, but I might as well do it while we're on the subject. But all these false flag events are coming to play, and is the Charleston shooting another one? Now, Mr. James Perloff asked 15 questions regarding this. Now, I wasn't in Charleston to witness this event, and but I'm so used to false flags. Let's look at what Mr. Perloff is asking. He says, first, why do family members at Charleston interviewed show little sorrow or emotion just one day after the incident? Let me answer that question. Because they weren't killed. They were paid off. That's a good answer. Two, why is this family member repeating the same lines in two different media interviews as if scripted? Well, that's because he was. Well, now, that was one family member. Why is the U.S. government giving $29 million to the families? Well, the reason is they want to keep their mouth shut. Why was the church already reopened for services on Sunday? Isn't cleanup from a bloody massacre a time-consuming process? And isn't this a crime scene? That's interesting. Yeah, it's not a crime scene anymore. If it's a false flag, they already got their guy, who's set up to do nothing, probably. Why was the only person reported wounded? How was this guy Dylan Roof able to get off nearly 100% kill ratio? Similar to Adam Lanza at Sandy Hook. Roof allegedly did this using a single handgun. One must be a good shot to fire lethal shots with a handgun. According to news reports, Roof reloaded 5 times. One would think some people should have had time to flee. As with Charles Hebdo, there are no pictures whatsoever of bodies or carnage. Now, Hebdo was the guy in France, right? Is this form good taste, respect for the victims, or possibly because the incident differs from what we were told? 7. Why did the media already have such a detailed profile of Dylan Roof, including sound bites from a relative just hours after his arrest? Because it was scripted. Is it only a coincidence that Department of Homeland Security had an active shooter threat training program scheduled for Charleston at the very same time of the shooting? Time and time again, we see drills, military exercises coinciding with false flag events, including 9/11 and the Boston Marathon. Although Roof's Facebook page has been removed from the web, why does the Wayback Machine show it was created only days before the shooting? Interesting. Now, when you look at a picture of this kid, just look at his left eye, how it's kind of looks a little cross-eyed and stuff. And Mr. Perloff brings up something interesting. Compare the left eye of this child to the adult Dylan Roof photo at top. Okay? Is it possible that Dylan Roof, as some believe, is actually John Christian Gross, who was a child actor in the 1990s, kindergarten cop, Dr. Quinn, medicine woman, and who was in the United States Marine Corps in 2010, according to his IMDb biography? Go to his IMDb biography. Is it a coincidence that the incident occurred as Jane Helm is getting underway? Among the planned exercises, soldiers will try to operate undetected amongst civilian populations. Wow. Then we're only on question 12. Is it only coincidence that Mother Emanuel has long ties to Freemasonry? That's that Mother Emanuel Church. And that Charleston is an historic center of Freemasonry? Could be. Is it only coincidence that Charleston was the first state to secede from the Union before the Civil War and thus symbolizes the Confederate flag now being targeted and banned? Is it only coincidence that this event distracted public attention from the critical fast-track vote occurring in Congress on this new trade agreement, an international trade agreement that sells out your country finally and once and for all, 100% lock, stock, and barrel to the corporations? Is it an incident actually a psyop intended to conveniently push several agendas? Advance gun control? Generate racial tensions? Shut down internet sites and freedom of speech? And ban the Confederate flag? And enhance the president's ratings in polls? Having him deliver the slain pastor's eulogy. The blacks get together here. What a crazy situation. And, another false flag event, never going to be looked into, but I am sure there's a lot of these questions are quite interesting. Why don't you think about them? Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about before we get to Mr. Skiba and our pursuit of what the Bible is saying about this circular theory, many call it the flat earth. I think people can digest it better if you say circle earth, which means that it's not a sphere. Now, yesterday evening, a guy that goes by the name of Jeranism, that's J-E-R, I think it's A-N-I-S-M. Go to his, he's pursuing this theory as well. And he was out in Monterey trying to do a test. He had a laser, and he was going to go sit on one side of a shore, going to another side. There was a nice little cove split by 4.3 miles, and he was going to shoot that laser across to prove it was flat. And his wife, they were doing this last night live on Ustream, and a number of us, I was quite interested to see it. Although I have some of my own tests planned, and that's going to be out on the Pacific Ocean, but I'm not saying anything because I don't want the Coast Guard to know. They'll stop you from doing anything. Did you know they can board your boat without probable cause? I'm not talking about the Coast Guard. Well, they can do it too. Department of Fish and Game. Yeah, they don't need any probable cause. They see a boat with a fishing license. They go, hey, Jack, let's go and give these guys some garbage, and probably they got some fish on there, and we can fine them. But anyway, so this Jeranism and his wife and another cameraman were out there, and they were doing this live Ustream, and they were getting it all set up, talking about it. And his wife had to make a 15-minute drive to the other side so they could coordinate this. Now it's dark, very dark in Monterey. A lot of people know about this because he was publicizing it, and all of a sudden he says, wait a minute, and we've been listening for 2 hours, watching this for 2 hours, and he says, okay, I'm going to shut this off for a couple minutes and then call my wife on the phone, and then we're going to hook it up and we're going to show you this test. Well, he never came back. And people were sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting, and the questions are, was he stopped by law enforcement or the Harbor Patrol after they got wind of what he was going to do, and they were going to say something like that laser that he was using, a laser gun to shoot across to show there's no curvature, is dangerous. Now the question is this laser gun dangerous, and should he have found another more or less populated or remote area to do this? I think yes, that might be smart. I don't know how dangerous these laser guns are, but let's keep up on this story, because that was really strange that he never came back to test. And I in fact emailed him today and didn't get a response yet. And that leads us right in to what we're going to talk about for the rest of the show. I'm about an hour into Rob Skiba's discussion of the Circle Earth and showing biblically what it's all about. And he's got a lot of good information. So let's get back to Rob Skiba. This is part 3. I've been doing this the last couple of days. And we'll end the week with that, and I'm sure we'll have a couple more shows on it because got another hour and a half to go. So you just sit tight and listen and enjoy yourself on the Investigative Journal.
I'll show you what the problem is. These are all composite images where they are really not very good at Photoshop because they're using the Photoshop clone tool to replicate clouds. This cloud is a copy of this cloud.
Okay, he is showing how NASA, and he's got a nice picture, go to this video too, of how they're showing us the Earth, but as he shows a time lapse, the clouds never there's what they've done when they Photoshop this, they put in the same clouds in a number of different spots. So anyway, cloud formations I don't think are ever the same. It's very rare. But anyway, I've seen time-lapse photography of what they show us as the globe, and the clouds will be the same 24 hours later. Impossible.
See the formations? They're identical. Identical formations, side by side. Wow. Right? These right here, side by side, side by side. See this kind of W-looking shape right here, replicated right here. This cloud is exactly the same as that cloud. Same clouds right there. And same thing on the other side of the world. They got the same thing going on. They got careless. Here, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the same formations replicated right there. These two replicated, same exact formations right here. This right here is clone of that right there. I mean, really? So you're telling me that we could take pictures of Jupiter and Saturn, huge, massive planets, and now we're out going to Pluto, but we don't have one legitimate picture of the Earth from space that's not a composite? Really? This is where, okay, why, Rob, why are you looking into this? This is why. Because we're believing a bunch of Luciferian Nazis, and we're taking that over Scripture. Now, here's another one for you. I put the other screen on. Can you see this right here? The photojournal? Yeah. Okay. This is Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA, California Institute of Technology, right? They have this video right here. For some reason, every time I click on it on this particular computer, I'm not able to open it, but I embedded it on my blog. The exact same video is embedded in my blog off of YouTube. Somebody had taken it and made a YouTube out of it. Here are other blue marbles, okay, allegedly done by NASA. And if you don't believe me, here's the space.com website where I got the picture. Here's the nasa.gov website where I got this picture. Okay, they can't even get the scale right. Look how big the United States is in this one versus this one. Color's all off. I mean, so far all of these are crap. Here's that picture, that same video, okay, from Propulsion Laboratory. Now, this is allegedly from the space probe Galileo at 6:10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on December 11th, 1990, when the spacecraft was about 1.3 million miles from the planet. Okay, first of all, you got a tiny probe 1.3 million miles away from the Earth, supposedly, that is keeping a perfectly steady shot of a spinning ball that's supposedly also moving at 67,000 miles around the sun in orbit. Yet it maintains a perfect synchronous shot of the Earth. But this is what really got me. Not a single cloud is changing in any way. This is a 25-hour time-lapse video. Supposedly 25 hours of the Earth rotating. Not a single cloud is changing, morphing, moving, dissipating, arriving. Nothing.
Wow.
That's what I said. This is a load of crap. And you got a lot of the same cloud features, too. You start noticing in a lot of pictures, they're using a cloud map on various software to generate these things. Okay, I could stand outside today, point my camera in the sky for 25 hours, and you're going to see all kinds of cloud formation changes. 25 hours, no clouds are moving? Sorry, I don't buy it. So, between Scripture and NASA, Scripture is not in support of a spinning globe. NASA's all about the spinning globe, but all their evidence is crap. So, and then when you go out and try to do things for yourself, to do your own visual tests, and I'm telling people, go out and do it. In fact, I've got an open challenge for everybody to go out and do the tests. Find a reservoir, find a salt plain or someplace this flat, take an altimeter, check your elevation. And my challenge is this. Get a piece of 4x8. I'm trying to figure a way that Joe Blow can do this without specialized equipment. All you need is a pretty decent camera and a telescope you can get for $30 at Academy Sports. Okay? Go get a sheet of plywood, 4x8 sheet of plywood, and paint different color stripes on it for every foot. So each foot would be a different band of color, and put big numbers on it, 1, 2, 3 through 8. Okay? And then set it up 8 miles away. If you set that thing up 8 miles away, let me go back and find the math on that. 8 miles away, the top of the 8-foot board, let's see, the bottom, okay, where you're standing, 8 miles away, the ground 8 miles away from you should be 42 feet below the horizon, below the curvature. So 42 subtract 8, that's at 34, right? So the top of the, is that 34? 34, yeah, I think, whatever, about 30 feet. The top of the, you say, I'm not a math guy either. Give me a calculator. The top of the 4x8 sheet of plywood should be about 30 feet below your ability to see it. But if you can see any of the color bands and paint them bright colors, you're not on a ball. And you may say, well, that's different changes of elevation on the ground, but you're not going to have that on water. Water seeks a level. So I've done one test so far on a reservoir that was 6 miles. and I didn't have the plywood. But there are things on the other side of the reservoir 6 miles away that I knew I would be able to see because I've seen it before. So I went to the end of the water. The water was literally right at my feet, and I looked across 6 miles, and I could see stuff at 6 miles that should be about 20 feet below my ability to see it. So I'm going to do several tests, and I'm telling everybody out there, go do the test for yourself, because then you can't argue with me. Then you can't say Rob's crazy. Then you're going to have to say you're crazy, and then you're going to have to make a decision on what you believe, because that's what I'm doing. And people are starting to do it. I've found a bunch of videos out there, and now one guy did long before I ever got into this whole thing myself. This other guy was out doing this stuff. He's playing the song "Miles and Miles" from The Who. Dude, if you listen to the lyrics from Miles and Miles, it's the Flat Earth theme song, man. I mean, the chorus, I can see for miles and miles, I can see for miles, and, you're trying to put a deception over me, but I can see for miles and miles. I'm like, wow. So I got the website that I'm showing you. Originally, it was my blog on my seed website, but I just went out and got the domain testingtheglobe.com. Testingtheglobe.com. If you go there now, testingtheglobe.com, you'll see what I've been showing you. And I just threw that website together literally 10 minutes before I got on the air with you, so it's definitely a work in progress. I'm going to do a lot more to it. But I want to make a place on there where people can go out and do the test themselves. Go get a 4x8 sheet plywood, turn it sideways, paint 4 bars on it. If you only got 5 miles to work with, at 5 miles, the horizon should be 16 feet below your ability to see it. So lay it on your side. It should be at 4x8. It should be 12 feet below your ability to see it. Go do the test. Make a YouTube video. Post it. Send it to Josh or send it to me, and I'll put it on the website. Because I don't know about you, Josh, but never in my 46 years did I ever question the globe. I never questioned it.
Right.
I just believed it. They told me, so I believed it. But we're told to test all things, and as I'm out there testing it, man, I mean, it doesn't favor a spinning globe. So people are like, well, why do you still believe it, Rob? Why? Well, there's still things I can't figure out, to be honest with you. Coriolis effect is a big one. I don't understand that, although the ether may explain that one. And I'm doing some interesting research on that. In fact, I got to show you this, too. I'll do another screen share. There's a website. It's not a flat earther website either. It's just a scientific website. If you go to the bottom of my blog, this is all the comments at the very bottom, right before you get to the comments section. Right here, observe temperature, wind, and wave currents on the flat Earth. I put that title there. It's these people are not flat earthers. Takes you to this website. Now, you have many different maps that you can choose from. Down here, you can choose like the standard globe or whatever. I think this was. Oh, that's not it. Yeah. Okay, this right here is showing ocean currents, and you can move it around and check it, different angles and stuff like that, and the temperature is showing, the equatorial region and stuff like that.
Okay, and what he's doing here for the last 30 seconds before we take a break is very interesting, and we'll come back and I'll explain it when we get back from the break, because you can't see the patterns of the air, wind, and patterns of the water. And what we'll do is you'll see how it doesn't make sense on a globe, but it does make sense on a circle Earth theory. So we'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. if some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this June 26th, 2015 day in our calendar on this Friday. And haven't you wondered recently, well, maybe you haven't, but I had, why Funny Hat Francis, who others, a.k.a. they call him the Pope, is taking such a great interest in America. He's going to be here shortly. Every other day he's making a comment about this country, and every other day I hear him. The other day they were talking, just today, a news broadcast in San Diego was stating that the Pope has made an announcement that the Catholic Church feels that divorce is okay. So, that's one thing he's doing. But he's always taking an interest in this country. What could that be? Did I tell you a long time ago he's the head of the Vatican-led New World Order, the Illuminati, that he is kind of in the forefront of their decision-making because of his satanic worshiping, along with the Black Pope and their boys up there in Rome? I told you a long time ago all roads lead to Rome. So just think twice about what the Pope is doing here in America in September and why he's taking such a great interest. Well, back to Mr. Skiba and his look at the circle Earth compared to the sphere, the globe that we've been taught ever since you can remember. And what he's doing now, and if this is quite interesting to me, because I like to be out on the ocean, the currents. If you check out the currents, our ocean currents, and then you check out our wind patterns, and you'll find that they make absolutely no sense on a globe, but they do make sense if you look at a circle Earth. Just another clue into what's really going on behind the scenes. How far would these people take these deceptions? Oh, I think they will go all the way. All the way. And let's get back to Mr. Skiba here on the Investigative Journal on this Friday.
When you look at the currents, you can look at air currents or wave currents and temperature currents. When you look at it on a globe and you really start zooming in and analyzing things and how things are moving around, a lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It seems kind of random. When you do it on the flat Earth model, though, it starts making a lot more sense. What's doing what and why it's doing what it's doing. Let me go here. This is air currents. Okay, notice how in what we would call the northern hemisphere, everything's going this way. The air currents are going this way, but in the southern hemisphere, the air currents are going this way.
Okay, what he's saying is in the northern hemisphere, which is closer to the center, that's where the North Pole is on a circle Earth, right smack dab in the middle, they're going clockwise. Okay? Now, in the southern hemisphere, they're going counterclockwise.
See?
Oh, okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? Can you
Yeah.
Can you catch that? I wonder if that one's better. Let me try this. Yeah. So, if this is what has been referred to as the ether, this may explain why long-range shooters and stuff like that have to correct certain ways, for long-distance shooting, and some of the Coriolis stuff may be going on there. I mean, it's a fun website to poke around on and play with, and it may answer some of those questions. But you also have the spinning stars deal, where in the northern hemisphere you look up and the stars appear to be rotating one way, and in the southern hemisphere you look and the stars appear to be rotating the other way. I can't figure that out yet. Although I am chasing an interesting rabbit trail regarding stars as angels, because the Book of Enoch actually tells you that there's a class of angels known as the luminaries, and they are the stars, and they are commanded to keep a very specific position in the skies and follow a very specific path ordained by Yahuwah. And if they don't, there's basically a luminary police officer named Raguel who is in charge of policing those who don't do what they're supposed to do. So if the stars aren't really stars, I mean, let's just play this out. If we really are in a biblically enclosed system within which the sun, moon, and stars and everything is inside of that, then we're not talking about distant galaxies, trillions of light years away or whatever. It's all very close. And they're just following a path that they're told to follow. So, there are still questions that I have that I haven't been able to resolve, but I've talked long enough, so let's go to any questions you have so far and the ones I think your listeners were asking.
Yeah, sure. This is blowing my mind. This is extremely interesting. And,
this is all I've done from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, because I can't stop, man. It's incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of points that I wouldn't have an answer to. This isn't the first time you've done this to me. Has there been anything? I don't know, and I should know because I'm really into particle physics and quantum physics and stuff like that. Is there anything that says that that photons or that light follows the curvature of the Earth, like that gravity affects it in some way? I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I probably should. But if the Earth is a sphere and if photons follow like a gravitational path, maybe that'll explain why things don't disappear on the horizon. That's just pure. I don't know if there's any real science behind that. That's just me thinking out loud. But have you come across anything like that?
Yeah, plenty of my detractors are talking about the bending light theory. And I'm going, well, that's convenient. What if it's a flat Earth and the light's just bending so you can't see the hull of the ship?
Yeah.
I'll play the card against you. I'm going to flip the board on you. I don't know. I mean, if we can't trust light to tell our eyes what's going on, then there's no way we can visually confirm anything if that's true. Because if you're always about the magic bending light trick, I mean, how do we trust anything that we see?
Right.
I don't think you can. So then, at that point, if we can't confirm anything that we see, and people want to disregard the test that I'm trying to perform, then we're left to trusting NASA. And frankly, I don't trust them. And you say, well, other people have gone out there, and the Japanese. I'm like, really? Watch the stuff that others have put out too. It's just as bad. Now, have I seen every single video and every single photo ever put out there? No, of course not. But of the ones that I have, not just United States, I've seen European stuff put out. I've seen stuff put out by the Japanese. it's all just, in my mind, just as bogus and easy to debunk as the NASA stuff is. But when I look at the people who signed the Antarctic Treaty, see, this is what happened, man. In the 1920s, Admiral Byrd went to the North Pole and supposedly found an opening to inner Earth, which is incredible if that's true. You would think he'd spend the rest of his career, checking that out. I mean, and everybody would go check it out. But they didn't. He went to the South Pole, and you would think, well, maybe presumably he's going to see if there's another opening down there. But he spent the entire rest of his military career and life actually going down there. He died in 1957. Right before he died, there were a couple of very interesting. This is what my latest work is, a timeline that I'm putting together, and I actually start with the Tower of Babel, and I'm going all the way up to this September with CERN. That's the timeline that I'm covering, but really focusing in on the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and up to 72 during the Apollo program. You've got people never really got to Antarctica until the 1800s because they just weren't able to do it. Late 1800s finally start finding ways to break through the ice, and this is interesting. James Cook, I think was his name. I believe it was in the 1700s, maybe 1700s or 1800s. He got to the coast of Antarctica. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Yeah, okay. This is a work in progress. I'm not ready to actually publish this blog yet, but I have it kind of a work in progress. Okay, 1773, on 30 January 1774, James Cook reaches 71 degrees 10 minutes south, farthest south, coming within 75 miles of the Antarctic mainland without seeing it. Okay. Later reports said that during 3 voyages lasting 3 years and 8 days, Captain Cook and crew sailed a total of 60,000 miles along the Antarctic coastline, never once finding an inlet or path through or beyond the massive glacial wall. So the other question is, well, how come ships don't go off the sea if it's flat? How come ships don't fall off the edge? Well, here's why you don't fall off the edge. There's a 200 to 300 foot high wall that is the coastline of Antarctica. It's the border that Scripture says is keeping everything in. Nothing's going past that. But yet the Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference, allegedly. It took him 60,000 miles to circumnavigate Antarctica. That's curious. Now, I think that's cumulative over 3 years, though, so I don't know quite what to make of that statement. But I don't know. So in the 1700s, this guy gets there. You get into the 1800s, they get closer and closer. And then when you get to the 1900s, that's where things get really interesting. Shackleton, this guy Shackleton, goes down there on the, I think I put this in my original blog. He goes down there on the name of the ship is the Nimrod. He goes down there on the Nimrod, and it's called the Nimrod Expedition. I'm like, seriously? Okay, Nimrod's goal was to reach into heaven, right? Yeah, the Nimrod Expedition. So you can click on the link I got there and read all about the Nimrod Expedition, British Antarctic Expedition, otherwise known as the Nimrod Expedition. And it was on the name of the ship was the Nimrod right here. Okay, Nimrod was trying to reach into heaven by going up. Could it be that these guys are trying to go out, try to find the ground floor? I don't know, but I mean, why do you? And this is what really got me, is they did so in 1908. 1908. I'm like, really? 1908? Seriously? 1908 is when Nimrod was born, according to my other. Let's see. I'm going to put it in here. This is one of my other blogs. Yeah. Okay. The 350 post-flood years of Noah's life. This is a chart I did last year, and the follow-up chart, the Nimrod-Abraham timeline. Nimrod was born in 1908 AM, or years since creation. And then 1908, see, 1907 to 1909, well, that's 1908. Nimrod went to Antarctica. I'm like, I mean, you can't write this stuff. I mean, wow. Okay, so they go down there. A whole bunch of people are, from that point on, once they start finding ways to get through the ice to get there, more and more expeditions and better ships are built and used to get there. Then you get to Admiral Byrd. Now, when Admiral Byrd goes down there several times, and one of the operations is called Operation High Jump. And you're like,
oh, jeez.
Yeah, right. Operation High Jump. Operation High Jump. Really? Operation High Jump. I mean, because they went out there with aircraft carriers and airplanes and stuff, some real heavy equipment and stuff like that. Operation High Jump. So then he gets on TV, national TV, and he does this radio show where he talks about all of the natural resources down there. I mean, coal and uranium and stuff that fuel the world forever. It's wonderful. And you can go on YouTube and look up the Admiral Byrd news interview. I think it was on CBS. And it's wonderful. And all these nations are going down there, Russia and Japan, all these nations are going down there. Check it out. Well, then he goes down after that interview. They go down on the next mission, which I believe was called Operation Deep Freeze. And then all of a sudden, everything changes. Everybody pulls out. They leave Antarctica. And all the nations that were down there doing whatever they were doing signed a treaty, the Antarctic Treaty, and I believe it was 1958 or somewhere thereabouts, saying, nope, nobody can stake a claim to Antarctica, and if you're going to go down there, you can only go down there for scientific reasons under carefully restricted guidance, but it's not a free-for-all. Nobody can just, hey, I'm going to go check out Antarctica and do a high jump of my own. No, can't do it. So when I look at the nations that signed the Antarctic Treaty, and I look at the nations that are putting forward quote-unquote space videos of the Earth, they're the same people. So if I was to put on my tinfoil hat and play the conspiratorial role here, there definitely appears to be some very suspicious things that took place. Then all of a sudden NASA is formed, and then simultaneously you have Russia and the United States doing high-altitude nuclear bomb testing. They're blowing up nuclear bombs high up in the atmosphere, and they called it Operation Fishbowl. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, man. I mean, they're calling it Operation Fishbowl. Okay? So, I mean, if they're trying to keep us from having conspiracy mindsets, they're really not helping out much with the names. The Nimrod mission goes down there, Operation High Jump, and we're going to all leave there because apparently we found something, and now we're going to start blowing things up high up in the atmosphere. And if you go on YouTube and do a search for Operation Fishbowl high altitude nuclear testing and watch the explosions that took place and how they look, I got to tell you, man, it looks like they hit a dome, and they were. It's almost as if they found the end of the Truman Show in Antarctica, and then they said, wonder how high this thing is. And they started blowing off bombs. And then you're going to tell me that we went from Sputnik in 1958 to men standing on the moon in 1969. You're telling me in 11 years we went from ideas scribbled on napkins to putting men on the moon with technology less sophisticated than my iPhone. And if you go to NASA right now, and I started posting this video real early. As soon as they posted it to YouTube, I saw it like within days of them posting it. The Orion project is a new project that replaces the space shuttle program. There's all these videos, like at least 3 videos that I've seen, where the NASA scientists are talking about trying to figure out the radiation problem for Orion. They're like, we've got to get, and they got this young guy, and he's drawing on this thing. We've got to go through the Van Allen belts with these high, intense radiation, and not only once but twice we got to go through it because it's a round trip, And so there's this big problem of solving the radiation issue for Orion. And I'm like, wait a minute, you guys, you went in a tin can and jumpsuits, 46 years ago. Why don't you just do the same thing? Put the same tin can together and wear the same jumpsuits. No, they're giving it away, man. They're telling you, and they're saying this in several videos. They're saying they have never been past 400 miles of the Earth's atmosphere. And wow. So, I mean, I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. The timeline is very suspicious. The names of the programs that they're doing is extremely intriguing at best, and damning at worst, because, I mean, they may be just totally giving away the whole thing.
So what do you think their reason for if it is a flat Earth model and that's what we're living on, what do they have to gain by hiding that and coming up with this globe idea? Like what would their motivation for that be? Enormous control.
First of all, I don't have any problem with the idea that there could be an International Space Station up there, although there's a lot of things questionable about that too. You see a lot of videos that looks like bubbles leaving their arms and stuff when they bump something or whatever. That it could be that a lot of stuff we think is International Space Station is just in a big pool somewhere. But I don't have a problem with the idea that it could be up there. Or satellites, because if the flat Earth model is true, then the sun and moon are hanging up there somehow. They're rotating somehow in a gravity-less atmosphere.
Okay, let me break in here. I think Mr. Skiba gives them a little more credit than I do. I think there's not one satellite up there, as they claim, and the International Space Station, to me, is 100% hoax. And I've looked into those two subjects in depth, and I've come to the conclusion they cannot exist. And if they did exist, the evidence of them existing would be so much better than what they were showed when told by NASA. And he did say one thing: I don't trust anything they do. Back to Mr. Skiba.
So, if the sun and moon can hover, rotate, and orbit the way they apparently are in the flat Earth model, then I don't have any problem believing that something else could do the same thing. But it would explain why we have no pictures of the Earth. Everything we have is composite images based on stripes of footage taken by satellites. But if we can get the whole world to first of all, in the 1960s we were supposedly in a space race, right? Well, I did an interview with Doc Marquis last night on my radio show, and we were talking about the Illuminati playing cards and the letter that Albert Pike wrote to was it Manzini or something like that. Is a letter that was, and Doc confirms that this letter was legit. There are other people that say it's not, it's a fraud or whatever. Whatever the case, this letter, whoever wrote it in the 1800s. And in this letter, it lays out a plan for 3 world wars. And the first 2 happened exactly, and the goals that they wanted to achieve happened exactly according to the script. And if you look at the events of the world stage right now, World War III is lining up exactly according to the script. And all these things are designed to bring about a new world order and the rise of Antichrist. And we know that there's a coming great deception.
Well, one thing I want to add on this subject, it was Albert Pike writing to Giuseppe Mazzini, an Italian high-level Freemason. And Albert Pike, it explains to me why his statue is in Washington. Why otherwise would they put a statue of Albert Pike in Washington? Secondly, that letter was in a British museum until people started talking about it. Then it was taken out. So you make up your mind on what you think. So anyway, back to Mr. Skiba.
Right. So if we look at this from a Luciferian point of view, I mean, you don't start saying what does the U.S. government have to gain from this? You say, what does Satan have to gain from this?
Right.
Okay, that's where it ultimately has to go back to. And we know that the leaders of most of these countries are Luciferians. I mean, they all belong to, Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger, Skull and Bones, Freemasons, They're all into these secret societies. And the secret societies all have a Luciferian agenda. So the motive ultimately has to go back to Lucifer. What is his motive? His motive is to always get us to question God and to question his word. Now, his word clearly tells us that we are not on a spinning globe. And yet, when you go back to the early to mid-1800s, and you can go back even before that with Eratosthenes and some of these other guys who started putting forward the idea of a globe. Oh, speaking of that, you know who I'm talking about, Eratosthenes? I said his name right. He's the guy that really is kind of credited for putting forth the theory of the Earth as a globe, like in 180 BC, somewhere around there. Or about 200 BC, let's just say. And his whole reason for that was he saw a shadow under one obelisk that looked like it was straight down, and then something like 80 miles away or whatever, there's another obelisk further up in Egypt that at that same time of the day, it's known that it casts a long shadow. And so he said, well, the only way that's possible is if we're on a ball, and the sun's hitting this one first, and it's casting a shadow on this one longer. And so he did some math saying if you have the 2 obelisks like this and you keep following that math down to a point, you can create a mathematical formula that tells you the circumference of the ball. Well, that's an interesting theory, but it's not the only explanation, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. And I'm probably going to forget what we were talking about before I went on this rabbit trail, so if you can remember what the original question was, bring me back to it. But He said that's the only way you could have that illusion. And I say, no, that's not true. I created this animation right here in a software called Poser that allows me to create 3D imagery. This is what's called a point light right here. I can adjust the attenuation to this ball of light so it only throws so much light, however much I decide that I want it to.
Okay, this gets a bit complicated, this part. I'll skip over that, and we'll begin next week again and finish this up. We're about an hour and 30 minutes into this 2-hour and 50-minute presentation. And let me just finish this show, because we only have a minute or two on this note. Yes, you know something? I remember when I first became a journalist, I knew without even a blinking of an eye, you have to question everything. Everything. And I think what Mr. Skiba is saying is the same thing. Even if it goes against everything you've been taught, but who's been teaching you? The Vatican-led New World Order and their funny hat, Mr. Francis, who leads that now. Back in next week on the Investigative Journal. Good night.